theme song for the Gear Podcaster.
We should probably claim him as one of our own because he's from New Zealand and we love to claim the New Zealanders. We have Nick Granville on the podcast today. Nick, how are you, mate?
Very good, thank you. Very good, thanks.
Do you want to give us the Reader's Digest of your guitar career up to this point and how you got into it and what you do with yourself?
Oh, yeah. Where do I start? I primarily make my living as a session musician. So I do a lot of recording work. You're in my studio right now. I'm currently playing on the theatre show Wicked, which is pretty full on. Loads of guitar, loads of instrument changes, all that sort of stuff. But I grew up playing blues and rock and Hendrixy, Stevie Ray Vaughan sort of stuff. Classical guitar was my first thing. Did that for a couple of years, then switched to the more bluesy rock, Hendrixy type stuff. Then I was a huge Steve Vai fan and Satriani and all those kind of rock, progressive rock guitar players, if you like. Kind of went down that rabbit hole for quite a number of years. And then jazz, done a lot of jazz stuff.
We won't hold that against
Then I went through music school and did all that kind of stuff. And got lucky, got some good gigs really early on and got to do a lot of session work very early on. So there's nothing better than hearing yourself back and going, I thought I played that well, and then it really sucked. And you go, I need to work on my time, or I need to work on my tone, or I need to work on any number of things. So, and nowadays I do a lot of stuff from. I taught at a university for about 10 years, and then we moved to Europe just before 2019. Yeah, it was. Brexit had hit the UK. Yeah, and then COVID, of course. But been back in New Zealand since December 2019. And yeah, I make my living just gigging. No teaching, no anything else, just gigs and recording work. So I'm one of the lucky few here that get to do that. But I do gigs with orchestras. I play with the New Zealand Symphony a lot. As you can see, there's a few instruments. Sometimes I play banjo, sometimes I play mandolin, whatever they ask me to do. I'm like, you're paying me, I'm there. It's all good.
That is the actual attitude to have in life with a lot of these things. So I imagine it's actually pretty similar to Western Australia, where New Zealand, it's a small country, literally and population-wise, and in terms of doing the gigs that you do, is it just kind of you've worked your way up to that point where it's like, oh, we need banjo, we need ukulele, we need guitar, we need this kind of thing. We'll call Nick first. Is that sort of the place you found yourself in?
I think so. I mean, there's some advantages I have that a lot of other people here don't have, without meaning to sound egotistical in saying that. But like being able to sight read, as you probably know, there's not many guitar players who sight read. So when I was at music school, I figured, well, if I'm like a half-assed sight reader, I'm way better than everyone already, just by being like a little bit. And you don't have to be as good as like a classical violinist or anything, but as long as you can read a bit. And so a lot of my gigs involve reading. And I did a session for someone a couple of weeks ago, and we did 17 songs in 3 hours, and they're all pop songs and stuff. But he pulled out his laptop. I'd play the chart down, the next one, and a lot of them he'd change the keys as we were going. I'd do one take in one key, one take in another, and that ability to read, I think, is what's kept me working. And I mean, I do my own projects as well, and they're more improvised things. But the working musician thing is reading a lot of the time.
Now, my question with that is, when you talk about sight reading, there's when I think of it, and from people I've spoken to, there's kind of two camps where it's, here's a rough chart, do your thing because we like your sound. Is it more the sort of thing where it's like, here is the music, play it, and you play it, and maybe it takes you a take or two and you move on to the next thing? Is that more the situation you find yourself in?
Both. Sometimes I get a chord chart and they say, just do your thing. Sometimes it'll be quite highly written out, and it'll be, I played Mahler with an orchestra the other day, a local orchestra, playing mandolin. And that was 100% written out. I just had to play exactly what was on the page, and that was bloody terrifying, actually, to be honest. I was at the first rehearsal when I went, how did I get myself in this shit? I'm not even on my instrument. This is my instrument, and here I am on an instrument that's not mine, that's really small and awkward. And I'm having to read the stuff that, So that was very prescriptive, but and generally it's somewhere in the middle. Even the theatre shows, I mean, I take a lot of liberties, you know. And Wicked at the moment, I have one solo where I get to improvise, and it's in the key of F sharp.
Oh, lucky boy.
So I was like, thanks.
I like,
but
it's
all
playing
good.
in F sharp.
I do too, but it's not the norm, is it?
No, it's a lot of Racer X songs were in F sharp, so it's comfortable.
Love Racer X. I'm glad to hear someone else does too.
Hey man,
Okay.
I've built a whole lifestyle out of liking Racer X. Maybe not so much now, but
the other question that we should just get straight out of the way is: do you like King's X, Nick?
Oh yeah.
Oh, good. Friend of the podcast. We're gonna have a great time. So
that shouldn't even be a question, right? That those guys were so bad. And the funny thing with them too is that King's X is a lot of cats aren't really hip to just how great they were.
And they're
one of those underrated.
They're the band that you ask that question and somebody says yes and you know you're friends with them, or they say no and you go, look, let's be friends, but first go and listen to these 5 albums.
Yeah.
Let's
talk once you've done some proper listening. Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
I grew up with that music. That was a lot of the stuff I listened to, you know. And as I mentioned, Steve Vai and Satriani, I mean, that Passion and Warfare album, I remember when I got that as a teenager and I sat down and I learned how to play every single note on that record. You know what I mean? Same with Surfing with the Alien and Flying in a Blue Dream and stuff like that. I just learned how to play every note. And there was no tab books or any of that kind of stuff. And there was no notations either. Just had to transcribe by ear. And I think that's kind of one thing that's done me well in my music career is having a good ear. Because even sight reading, you're not just playing what's on the page because that would suck. That's not music. You're using your ear and you're trying to create something musical and expressive within that confines. Which is no different than playing, say, the whole line solo, you know, that Steve Lukather thing, you know. You can do your own solo, but that solo that Luke did is just so amazing that you're going to play that, you got to play that, right? So, and you want to be expressive in your own way of playing what he did.
When you were teaching, did you emphasize the sight reading, although that side of it when it comes to sight reading? Because I feel like some students that I've seen coming through music schools, it's basically, it's sort of one or the other. When I say music schools, I mean like even the TAFE thing. It's either here you are, you're going to be a great creator of music, sound, like just write your stuff. Doesn't really matter technically in what you can do as long as you can put out something that is engaging. And then there's the other side of like, as you say, like read what's on the page and like make it perfect and staring at your guitar the whole time. I feel like I've seen a lot of students come out of music schools without having both of those or meeting in the middle at all. It's
my kind of take on that was that I would always try and find what the student needed, like and where they were coming from. I mean, I remember I had this student Alex who was it was a jazz school primarily, and this dude would turn up in like a 3-piece suit, and he would get out his old Gibson arch top, and you knew his path was kind of worked out, right? And then I had this other kid, Luke, who was like a full-on like heavy metal, death metal rocker with his Les Paul, you know. And you don't teach those two the same things, but I kind of figured there's some things that's universal, like technique is kind of universal. Ability to read, whether they're going to use it or not, it unlocks the fingerboard, it unlocks their kind of theoretical side of their brain. Like just knowing your shit. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't swear.
No, swear.
No.
We fucking swear all the time, mate. Don't worry about it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, don't sweat. On that topic of reading, a friend of mine who's an older guy here who was, I mean, probably in a similar position to yourself where, you know, in Perth there was a handful of people who could read. So when a gig came through that required reading, he'd get the call. But I remember asking him, you know, this was probably when I was in my early 20s. I was like, how do you do it? And he just went, it's just fly shit, mate. Don't worry about it. You know, you just kind of get up there and you look at it. And once you've done it enough, it's like knowing how to play a G chord or knowing the appropriate sound to dial in for a particular gig. And part of it is
you still work yourself into,
and part of it is experienced.
Yeah, and you still work yourself into corners. The guitar is a stupid instrument for sight reading on any way you look at it, right? Like this E note here is in multiple positions across the neck and they're all written the same. And if you play the wrong one, you're screwed half the time, right?
Yep.
So I kind of had a strategy with
sight reading. That's why I've never been able to progress particularly far with it. just what position, which I had that moment of like, well, it's just the guitar's not written for that, and it's a stringed instrument and da-da-da, but then it's violins and cellos and everything. It's not like other string instruments can't work it out, so I'm sure there's a very clear methodology behind it, but I'm too lazy.
My strategy was always that the sweet spot of the neck is kind of here, isn't it? It's like that middle section where, a lot of notes sound their best in that position. Not always, but so I kind of made, well, if I know how to read that position from, say, fret 5 to fret 9 better than anything else, then I'm good to go. Now E really only has one position. It's right here. And now it might be the wrong E, but I can adjust that on the second go and it'll be fine. Also, I can get down to the low E. I've kind of got a range from low E to high E within that position. And that was kind of my strategy. And sometimes things don't work out and you fix them the next time. Most people don't mind if you get things wrong the first time if it's something technical. But get it right the second time is usually the way it goes.
I'm more of a get it right the 16th, 17th time. Or get it sort of right the first time and then screw it up like way worse every subsequent time until finally beat my head against the wall enough till it sounds okay. But.
Man, I had a session for this guy one time. It was for this documentary film. And he said, can you play this part? And I played it. And it was rubato, so there was no tempo. Mm-hmm. It was just all free and floaty. So he had set up a click track that moved, like a moving click track. And I'm like, so I played it and I got it. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that felt good, He goes, great, let's do another one. He goes, that was perfect, let's do it again. So we did it and we did it and we did it and we did it. We must have done 50 takes. And he goes, I quite like what you were doing in the beginning. And I was like, I'm done.
All right, I'm out of here. Oh, man.
Just quickly, because it's great having this chat. I've had a couple of moments of motivation, which I don't have a lot of motivation to play guitar anymore. I just play my songs and then leave. But I did this, like now hearing that, I'm like, oh man, I kind of want to sit and work some stuff out again. But I did this concert on the weekend and I just thought I'd tell both of you because it was a big schools music concert. I mixed something like 54 bands in 2 days.
Wow, that came up. It's that time of year again?
Year 7 to year 12. And it was overall pretty good, but there was this one band, the last band on the first day, and they came out, they were 14, and this one kid came out in a leather jacket and tight pants, long hair, and note for note, nailed Extreme Play With Me. Like,
oh, wow.
I couldn't believe it, and did it with so much like balls and character. It was awesome. It wasn't just like this. It was like, running around and doing rock moves. But the thing that made it even better was I'd seen this kid the year before and he was great playing Pantera songs and he was really good, but there was no vocals. This time they found a singer and he was Gary Cherone. And it was, at 14, I've never seen a kid like grab a mic and dominate like anything like that before. It was incredible and hit every note. They finished with Welcome to the Jungle and he hit every single note. I couldn't believe it.
That's awesome.
I saw that and I was like, man, I'm kind of motivated to play some rock and roll again. It's like,
it's inspiring, Chris, isn't it? Because you know, the future's safe when you see that kind of stuff, don't you? And that's beautiful, man. That's awesome. Yeah, there's a kid around here actually who's like that. I've known his parents for a long time, and his father's quite a well-known composer here in Wellington. His father just wrote the music for the new Ferrari museum overseas, the massive big one.
Awesome.
Like he gets that kind of level of gigs. And this kid's like 14 and he's like that, he's like playing all the right stuff and just got it down and like he's really going for it. And Steve Vai's playing here next month. And so this kid's goal is to learn to play the whole For the Love of God solo before that concert. And he's 14.
Man. That type of motivation is, it is inspiring. Chris Samakavitis, he does the School of Rock thing here. He sent me a video and said, oh, this made me think of you. And it was a kid, 14-year-old kid playing an EVH Frankie, playing Far Beyond the Sun, like nailing it, like playing it better than Yngwie does now. And I was just like, oh my God. He was like, yeah, this may be, I figured you'd appreciate this. I was like, this is amazing. I don't remember being that age and anyone having that kind of ability. I think we've finally hit that saturation point with the availability of music education, how much good instructional stuff is now pretty much freely available, where it's like, if you got that, if you're willing to put in the hours, you're not, when you run into those, I feel like, for me and for Troy as well, it's like, we kind of grew up early 2000s playing, and it was like you were just starting to get tab everywhere on the internet, but it was bad tab. So you're kind of trying to learn a Racer X solo, and the way someone's transcribed it is nowhere near the way they're doing it. And 20 years later, you watch like a video of, I was watching this thing of Bruce Bouillet, you know, playing in like a guitar shop, and I think he's playing Motorman, and I was like, oh, of course that's how you play those notes, you know?
Yeah.
And like the weird tab with the strange fingering and stuff. And I was like, I gotta get my guitar out right now and try to do this. So yeah, it's awesome. And with the availability of, you know, music technology as well, I think that's the other big boon is, you know, there's not that thing where it's like, oh, well, yeah, you can kind of play, but you're playing a 15-watt Gorilla combo on a Squier Strat with the action this high. Gear is so good now. And this is the gear podcast, so this is the segue part of it. I want to know what's it like? What are you using at the moment, and how have you seen especially in New Zealand, which I imagine is even worse than Australia for the availability of music equipment? What was it like, and what's it like now?
Yeah, it's always been tough to get stuff here, as you know, with this tiny little island in the Pacific that nobody really gives a shit about half the time. And it's same with Australia. It's our isolation can have benefits, as we found with the whole COVID thing, but it can also have disadvantages too, you know. This is an AZ. It's been modified quite a lot. The guy who modified it for me basically said, the only thing left is the tuners. And I said, yeah, about those. I want to change those too. Which kind of started, there's this guy in New Zealand who makes unbelievable pickups, and I got him to custom make me a humbucker for this. I wanted one that's like a PAF but slightly hotter, but I wanted it like super open and dynamic, not kind of compressed. So yeah, he hand wound that for me. I swapped those two out. Those are Damasio areas, just because I'm always playing this gig. When I play this guitar, I'm playing rock stuff.
Yep.
And it's usually with loads of gain and noisy venues, and so I just wanted quiet. So I just took the whole wiring out and got it replaced. I put new frets in it. Mm-hmm. I'm quite a vintage guy in terms of guitars.
Interesting.
Yeah, these are pretty small frets, like a vintage Strat style fret. Yeah, I mean, same on Les Pauls, all those sort of guitars that had stainless frets, and I hated them, to be honest. I didn't dig them. I know everyone loves them, and I'm like, maybe I'm weird. To me, they sounded super zingy. Like
They are definitely zingy.
Like this upper frequency thing, like it was quite noticeable. I put new saddles in there because it had titanium saddles, which again was making it really zingy and bright. And now it's just great. This thing's got a big chunky neck on it.
It's oiled
roasted
as well,
maple.
isn't it? Is it oiled neck as well? It's not lacquered? Yeah.
Yeah, no lacquer, which is great. It just feels like, you know, it's actually not that easy to play this guitar. But like I've got other guitars that just play much easier, but there's just something about this, the way this one makes me play.
Yep.
It's got 11 to 49, so I like heavy strings, you know. Yep. Yeah, it's just a workhorse. I mean, I've dropped it so many times and it's still fine.
Yep.
I dropped it just on the way down here. I was walking down the stairs, carrying it like this, and I went bang, and I was like, oh, shit.
I think that's good, man. I think guitars need to be dropped a few times, provided the headstock doesn't fly off them. That's how you know you love them, when you keep playing them. When it's too perfect, you know, it's...
Just like children, hey, Troy?
Yeah, just like children.
Drop your children, I hope not.
Yeah.
Hey, look what he mouths off about my singing.
Yeah,
Got
exactly.
it coming. Okay.
Just a little suplex.
I've got a 14-year-old daughter, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
What music does she like, out of interest? Is she into rock?
She likes a lot of the stuff that my wife and I like, so she's
cool.
right into all kinds of music. She quite likes John Mayer. She quite likes Seal and Peter Gabriel and Sting and people
That's
like
cool.
that, you know?
Awesome.
So my son's into Ghost at the moment a lot. It's still his favorite band, but he's 4, so you know it's just I don't know how long that's going to last for. But I'm just holding on to these days when we can share that, and it's not. I don't know. I have a fairly open palette for music, but I don't want to have to be listening to like anime soundtracks and stuff when he gets to like 14, and maybe that's just part of life.
Yeah, but I mean, lately she's listening to Drake now. She said the other day she would have some Drake on, and I was like, she said, "What do you think of this music?" And I'm like, I don't know, but if you like it, that's cool.
Yeah. It's not for me. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, when I realized that about pop music is for you for like maybe 18 months in your life. and it's when you're that age, and then it's really hard to move past that, and then it just goes on to somebody else. So again, it's totally fine, because when she's 35, Drake will be doing a nostalgia tour, and everybody will be there like, oh my God, remember when this was the thing? And now those idiot kids who are 14 like weird stuff. My current joke is that just, kids, if they actually listen to music, that's a win, because most of them, vaping's way more interesting now. Just like, so do you like music? Nah, but do you want to look at this video on my phone of me smoking a vape? It's pretty cool. Hey, this is where I blow a smoke ring. So yeah,
I agree.
It's
as long as they're listening to music, I'm all for it. Whatever she, and she's not really been that interested in music. Her mother's a classical music, sings classical music in choirs and different things, and so she's been around that kind of music her whole life. She's been out and seen loads and loads of gigs, so she doesn't even hardly ever comes to gigs anymore, because same old thing. Although they came to Wicked the other night, and she seemed to like it. So
Wicked is awesome though. I love that show.
Yeah, it's pretty hard, man. It's like man, like it's one of the, I've done a lot of shows, and that one's like, it's a ball buster the whole time.
Yep.
Some of it I've got 2 bars, and I've got to swap from electric guitar to acoustic guitar, turn a page, grab a pick because I've just been using Ebo, and then I got to come in with the melody.
Yep.
And not miss it.
Yeah. So that's, in regards to that, I really wanted to ask about that experience of like the choreography of a theater show from a gear perspective. And do you select pieces of gear that make that easier, or do you
100%.
Do you just have to do do you pick the gear first and then you work out the choreography later?
Yeah, totally, 100%. Yeah, so I'm using my Fractal in there. I'm still on the AX8. I'm like,
oh, awesome.
Yeah, it still works and it sounds good. I'm actually looking at getting an FM9 soon, because I think I've outgrown it. But it's funny. I took it in the pit and I brought a little speaker, a little FFR thing, because I wanted to be able to get some feedback sustain. And I played one note, and the sound guy goes, "What are you doing, man? Turn your speaker off." And I'm like, oh. So we're on headphones, so it's like, it's that whole thing. But yeah, so I've got that, and then I've got for my acoustics, I have different tuners. I try and take everything out of the sound guy's hands as much as possible, because most of them don't know shit about what they're doing. And as my friend Tom Warrington says,
truth comes out.
Yeah, he calls them unsound engineers.
Yeah, it's funny because as technically a trained sound engineer, and as someone that worked as a live sound engineer for many years, now being on the other side of it, it's really funny. There's some good ones, but man,
absolutely,
everyone is.
There's
like
a guy
so
here, Chris
grumpy.
G, who's
sorry.
There's a guy here, Chris G, who's like, I just wish that guy was on every gig I did, And then the guys in the theater. I recorded the front of house mix for the show the other night, and one of the key songs, there's almost no guitar, and it's like buried in. So it's like, come on, guys. So the MD has actually written to him and said, "Hey, look, this should have guitar." Like,
Interesting.
Just that whole thing, but actually, it's a different sound guy, this one, than we normally have on a lot of these theatre shows in Wellington. So, while it sounds like I do a lot of theatre shows, there's usually 1 or 2 a year, and they're about 2 months of my life. Mm-hmm. So it's not my only gig, but they're a good. I like them because it's this. You set up once, you walk in, you come in, and it's about getting the part better and better every night.
Yep.
And it's a 14-piece orchestra, so there's and then there's 20 background singers, so it's a pretty big band. Mm. And
that's
so there's violin, cello. It's all on conductor. There's no click tracks, and half of the stuff doesn't even have drums in it. So,
wow. How do you go about dialing in sounds for something like that?
Watch your videos.
Oh, no.
Seriously.
Is it markedly different to a typical rock gig? Do you just basically go like, hey, here's the guitar sound. It sounds like guitar. Or do you really massage it to work, in the context of an orchestra?
Yeah, so most of the time I'll set up like a clean sort of platform. I kind of set my Fractal like an amp and pedals. So I have a clean Fender-ish amp, and I have it just on the edge of breakup, and then I'll hit it with I've been using the Sir Riot pedal in the Fractal.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Man, I love it. So I have one with lower gain, one with higher gain, so that's kind of my 3 main sounds. kind of manipulate on here a little bit if I need it, something a little different. And then I'll just add different sounds in as needed, kind of like a pedal board setup. Sometimes I'll set up scenes if it's like going to be really complicated switching. And then in this case, I've actually got a little M5 line 6 because they've got the Sequoia sound, which I spent a couple of hours trying to program in on the Fractal when I figured there'll be a way to do it. And then I was like, I've just got the pedal. Just patch it in and boom, done.
There's definitely that thing with, especially with the Fractal stuff, I find, but with any modeler where it should be able to do this, You've got a pedal sitting there and you're like, no, I should be able to replicate this. And 95% of the time you can, but then those 5%, it's just easier to take one extra thing, and just be like, well, that's the sounds. You were using an M9 for a long time. Hey, Tondi. Yeah,
I was. Yeah, I still use some of the sounds from that era of Line 6 units in my HX Stomp, because I still think the bass octaver is the best octaver ever. Like for that, to make a guitar sound like a bass is just amazing.
I use that one as well. It's awesome. It's that you're dead right. You drop it 2 octaves and it sounds.
Yeah, it sounds proper. It's really awesome. I've still got my M9. It's in my guitar rack at the moment on a tray because I thought it would be a good thing to have in there, but I've never plugged. Oh, I've not plugged it in. I actually forgot I owned it. It was really funny. I did a bass gig about 18 months ago, and I freaked out because I hadn't done a bass gig in so long, and I was like, what do I do? Like, all my pedal boards are set up for guitar stuff, and then I was like, I don't have a tuner, I don't have this and that and the other, and I was like, I used to use that M9 for like literally every gig, and I just dragged it out again, put it in a shopping bag, and then forgot it. I did the gig with it, and then forgot I had it, and it literally was in the boot of my car for 12 months.
Wow!
Then I retrieved it and put it in the rack only a few months ago. It still works. It's great. It's just
and that technology's just gotten amazing, hasn't it? How quickly it's got. I mean, an HX Stomp does a huge amount of stuff that the Fractal AXA. I mean, I pretty much have all the sounds bar that one, and I probably could have figured out how to figure it in there. All in the one thing. It works. I've got it dialed in now. I dialed it in my. You probably can't see, but I've got 2 studio monitors here, and I dialed it in quite carefully to get it there. Then I checked it with my FFR. Then what I usually do when I get in the theater is I set up a loop, and then I go and walk out the front and go and have a listen to what's going on and dial it in. Usually because, again, sound guys. So I got into the theater the other night, and he put a noise gate on the guitar.
All right.
So as the chord was tailing off, it was going hardline.
Yep.
And I said, turn that shit off. Turn the compressors off. Turn the noise gates off. You don't need any of it. It's like, I've already done it. And he turned it off and he goes, that sounds better, doesn't it? And I was like, that's right.
Yeah, I've had that experience a few times with, I've been using Modelers Live for 7 years now. And it's almost always, when you have the time to do a sound check, it ends up worse because, too much gets done to the guitar sound that's already been there's that iterative process of, when I first got a Fractal, it was like every gig I'd ask the sound guy, like, what was there too much of? What was there too little of? And it's like, I'd be, there was a bit too much 4K. Cool. Next time, dial a bit of that out. Or, the presence was too high. Cool. Dial that out. And eventually just got to the point where I was like, no, it was fine. And that's all I ever want, at a gig. It's like, if it's fine, then, 1 time out of 10, it'll be the best. 1 time out of 10, it will be the worst. 8 times out of 10, it will be fine. That's what I'm going for. But yeah, it's, I've definitely had some situations where it's like the more you get it to a point and then the more you do, it actually makes it worse. It's like, just turn it all off, turn it up, it'll sound fine.
Well, it's like your video the other day where you said about knowing where to draw the line and when to stop, right? Because these things are very tweakable, and that's what I love about it. I'm a real tweaker. I like, I've got a million pedals and guitars and different things, and got a bunch of amps. You can't see them, but they're over here. And I still like real amps as well. I mean, I've got my Bassman running here, and that's probably my favorite clean tone amp, Victoria Bassman. I've got a Victoria Deluxe, and there's a vintage Super from the 80s.
Oh, wow.
Basically like a Pro Reverb. Then I've got a Mesa Boogie, and you probably can't see, but over in that corner is a Mesa Boogie Revolver, which is the spinning speaker.
Oh, right.
I had no idea they did one.
Yeah, Yeah, I actually got an email from this guy asking to buy it. And would I send it to Los Angeles?
Was it
Buy a
Michael
flight
Torrin?
case and send it. It was, sorry?
Was it Michael Torrin?
It was a guy called Rick Gould. And his email was Bonamassa Museum. So he was trying to buy it for Joe. Because my friend Josh Smith plays in his band. And I text Josh and I was like, who the hell is this guy Rick Gould? And he goes, oh, that's Joe's right-hand man. He would have been trying to buy it for Joe. So I'm glad I didn't sell it because it's still there and nothing sounds like that thing. It's got an actual speaker in a box inside it, and the whole box spins inside.
Wow.
Right, okay.
So it's kind of like chorusing, but it's chorusing air, moving air. It's it's delicious. It's really great fun.
When did they make those? Like, how old are they?
Oh, it's been around for a while. I probably had it for 15 years, I reckon.
Okay.
10, 15 years. That one was $2,500 when it was here, and nobody bought it. And they dropped it down to $1,250, and I went, "I'll take that. Thank you very much."
Yeah. You mentioned Josh Smith, who he's like another person that I think of with immaculate vintage taste, but he plays a modern Ibanez. Kind of like yourself. Do you find? I guess there's kind of been the shift where like say the '80s thing. A lot of my favorite players, it was a 70 like a non-golden era Strat, put big frets on it, put a Floyd on it, add all this kind of hardware to it. Whereas I do see more people now kind of doing the thing you're doing where I've got a really great playing modern guitar, but I'm going to almost like unmod it where I'm going to put vintage style stuff on there. So you get you're going for that best of both worlds thing with like small frets and
it depends what you
vintage
play,
humbuckers.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm quite an old school kind of player. I'm like, a lot of my stuff is blues or jazz related, or if it's rock, it's not really heavy rock a lot of the time that I do. It's more classic rock or those sorts of things. So it's quite if I was more of a rock metal, like heavier player, then that would probably make more sense. I always think back to like Hendrix, right? Hendrix, when he was playing those guitars, they weren't vintage guitars when he played them.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like that Monterey Festival was like, that guitar was 1 year old when he played it.
And there's a lot of stories of him just giving guitars to his mates, right? Oh, well, I'll buy one in the next city, You can always buy a Fender somewhere and easy enough for him to mod it and set it up. So it's an interesting, I like that perspective where it's not snobbery, because snobbery would be if it's not this list of specs, I'm not even going to touch it. It's knowing what you want on an instrument. And, if a particular instrument speaks to you and is inspiring, it's, these things are, you've done it a whole bunch of times, right, Troy? Like, your 335 and your Charvel, it's like, yeah, they're cool guitars and, you get them refretted and set up and then you actually play them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a
that's
tool.
the key thing, isn't it? It's got to be played, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I've played a bunch of vintage Strats that weren't played and they sounded like ass. And then I've played other ones that were beat up and played to death and they just had a mojo. So, I love vintage stuff too. I've got an old Gibson up there from the 40s and I've got, there's a bunch of different stuff. An old vintage double neck Ibanez and
nice.
Various different things that I've collected over the years. I've only got about half my stuff here because the rest is all in the theatre. I like that stuff too, but it's just different. It's funny, you talked about that snobbery. I remember I met a certain famous guitar player, and I won't mention his name, but I showed him this guitar, and I gave it to him, and I said, check out this neck, And he said, I only play vintage guitars now. And I was like, okay. And let's just say he had a Paul Reed Smith signature guitar for a little while.
Oh,
okay.
I don't know if he still does, but I was like, oh, you only play vintage, right?
Yeah, it's funny how those things happen.
Everyone can
what's
work
going
out who
on?
that was in the comments.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure people will figure it out.
Let us know, and Nick might just kind of pop in and
His
like
name
the comment.
was Mark Tremonti.
Mark Lettieri, that guy. No, it wasn't. No, he doesn't care about vintage.
Yeah, I'm another great example of someone who's, it's amazing what you can do with your hands. Just make it work, bro. The shelf of pedals behind you there. Are there? Tell us about that. Is that stuff you've collected for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What
And
are
there's
some
some,
choice picks?
Okay, I'll show you this one. You'll
All right, here we go. Because being a Kiwi, obviously, there's one pedal in particular I have to ask that you have, but we'll see if you can read my mind with it. Yeah. Of course, there it is.
Of course,
Yeah.
there you go, the hotcake. I wasn't even going to get it, but as soon as you said that,
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
and it even says Manager's Special $3.99.
You left the sticker on it. Oh, dude, that is amazing.
This thing has some really whack sounds too. It's really cool. If you hold the up button, it scrolls between each preset and it holds on each one for about a second. So you play a chord and then you get each preset going for like it's...
Oh, right. So just for the people that listen to this in an audio podcast, I can't actually see what
XP100, original whammy wah.
The whammy wah, yeah.
I have another whammy over there, but this is the juicy one.
Yep.
And this one here, one of my friends, good friend lives down the road, makes those Red Witch pedals. I don't know if you know
Oh,
those.
yeah.
Right.
Ben Fulton. So I've known Ben for ages. So he made me this pedal, which is his Serafina Fuzz, serial number Nick G.
Yeah,
So
that's
I'm
what we
the
like
only
to
one
see.
in the world, and he said I'm going to put some extra special mojo in there. So I don't know what he did, but it's I didn't even put this on my board. It sits at home and gets used for a certain thing. What else have I got here?
Who was the band as well? Was it the Datsuns? They had that song about the Crowther, the one that's not the hotcake.
Prunes and
I
Custard?
bought one recently. The Prunes and Custard, yeah. It's like, harmonic percolator.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I met that guy, Paul Crowther, that makes these hotcake pedals. And I was, not meaning to name drop, but I was on a tour with John Schofield. And
nice.
Paul bought the pedal in for Sco to try, and Sco liked it. And he said, man, it sounds great. He goes, where do I get one? In other words, he was saying, give me one. And he said, you can get them from shops. And he grabbed it off him and took it and left. And I was going, just give him the bloody pedal. But he didn't.
Amazing.
He took the pedal and he left. And I was like,
oh man, that's the difference for anyone.
that's such
for
a
anyone
Kiwi
listening,
thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and an Aussie thing as well. Like for anyone listening in the States and Europe, that sums up the difference culturally, where it's just like, oh yeah, you can buy it at shops.
Yeah.
It's the best. Just the best example. I love that. Yeah, I've seen a few interviews
another
with
one.
Paul, and he's a what you see is what you get guy. That's what I gather.
Totally. That's another one that you might not have seen before. The old Cusack Screamers.
Oh,
Yep,
yeah.
I remember those.
This is one of the original ones,
Whoa.
serial number 186, I think it is, or something. Apparently, they took all the parts were from the old Rat pedals.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So yeah,
Very,
some
very
stuff I've
interesting.
collected. And then there's another pedal board.
I'm loving this.
Yeah.
All the usual
yeah.
suspects.
Yep.
Yeah. An original MXR and a OC2.
Nice. I love those
Yeah.
OC2s.
Yeah. It's a bunch of toys. I love gear. I'm such a nerd with this stuff.
Oh, man, it's just fun. Like, it's, there's your tools, and then there's just like, I don't know, or what makes you get out of bed in the morning? Just sometimes a new amp that you don't
Totally.
need.
Yeah. But inspiration is so important, right?
Yep.
Like, if you're not inspired, you don't want to play. And that's, if we have visiting people here, I always go and try and take a lesson with them. And if nothing else, just to even just get a little bit of inspiration for a while, so you feel like you want to, sometimes that can last for a month. During the lockdown, I took a lesson with Scott Henderson, and I've known Scott for a while, and I just, we just kind of chatted for about an hour and talked about some stuff. And I went away and I was like, right, I feel like playing guitar again.
Yeah, it's amazing
really
how
cool.
that can happen. I teach a lot of people. A lot of what I do now is like teaching online, but I'll every now and then you have someone hit you up for a lesson, and you read the email, and you click on their little signature, and you look at their band or their project, and you watch them play, and you just go like, why did they hit me up for this? Because they're on another level playing wise. And then it's a similar thing. You kind of hang out and chat, and there's that sort of, if you can get one little kind of outside perspective, sometimes that can be really, really, really cool. And I mean, for myself, doing those have been probably some of the most inspiring we were talking about younger kids. Sometimes you get that kick up the bum when you have a student who just melts your face. Where you're just like, oh my God, like, I feel inadequate because I couldn't do that when I was your age. I can't do a lot of it now. But that thing where it's like, you hit somebody up and it's like, hey, we can hang out for an hour and that, which is why we like to do this. I guess that's a big aspect of why I like this. It's almost every episode we do during the week, like, either I'll message Troy or he'll message me, and it'll be, some thing that we picked up from the interview. And, we were speaking to Angus Clark, who plays with Trans-Siberian Orchestra a few weeks ago. And off the cuff, he's like, oh, yeah, we're playing these big arena shows. So in the Fractal, like, we just kind of figured out, like, 5.1K for the high cut. You just do that, and it works. And I had a gig the weekend after that, and I was like, I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm just going to put that value in. And it sounded really good. So I was like, I never would have thought of that, but
those little nuggets are so. It's like your London plate, right? I stole that.
Isn't it just the one?
Yeah, because I love collecting those little nuggets of information like that. And I mean, that's what I love about podcasts. And I've listened to a bunch of your guys' podcasts. They're really great. That one with the collector the other day, the
Michael Torrin,
yeah,
so good.
Man, he just messaged me just then, like. We're now like just always talking about gear. It's
so
weird,
do they have Gumtree in New Zealand?
No, we have Trade Me and eBay-ish, but not so much. Trade Me's a little New Zealand, well, not little anymore, but they're a company that got in on that stuff before eBay was established here. And then Gumtree and all those others and Craigslist, and they haven't really got a look in here.
Yeah, because we spoke to Michael and mentioned Gumtree, and what did he message you, Troy, and said like he looked through 40-something pages of gear in just Perth?
Yeah.
Like that level of dedication to the collecting is, I imagine it's like the Bonamassa Museum thing as well, where it's just good stuff. So I want to get onto some, and these can be purely hypothetical, but what for you is the minimum, if you had to get rid of everything guitar-wise, what would the minimum number of instruments you need to do what you do? Like, if you had to go, I need this type of guitar, and obviously, you do a bunch of other stuff. What would be the non-maximalist Nick Granville collection?
Oh, gee, good question. Guitars wise or all gear?
Let's just do guitars. Yeah,
just guitars. I'd say some kind of super strat humbuckery type thing. 2 singles and a humbucker. So this sort of guitar, an acoustic guitar. Like a steel string acoustic, probably a nylon string acoustic. And I reckon I could do most things with just those.
Wow.
That's so funny you put nylon in there. I've never needed to own one because I never play music that requires it. But that wouldn't have occurred to me.
It comes up quite a bit for me. Maybe I just do cheesy, corny shit. Right? People want to do their love albums.
I always think, when I think of session guitar players, the things that always come to mind are, your Lukather, your Landau, your Larry Carlton, those kind of guys. But I remember getting a Hot Licks video, or REH, but they would have the ad for all the other VHS tapes that they had, and there was Tommy Tedesco. And I was like, I remember saying to my dad, and I was like, who's Tommy Tedesco? And he was like, look him up. He's played on everything. But the little clip is him playing a nylon guitar, that was just, oh yeah, this is a thing that I have made essentially my life's living on, because pretty much every record that I've ever played on, they want to hear that sound. And obviously coming up through that era, Spanish guitar was a much more kind of cliche thing. I guess now in the like post sample age, for a lot of people, it's like, oh yeah, here's some sampled licks or something. But yeah, it's definitely for the rock pig like me. It's just something you forget about.
I want to return to that Savage Garden sort of sound, with that nylon string guitar.
Well, yeah, actually, that's probably the other place that I think about it, was when I was a preteen, that those songs were just huge, and all those like slicer style kind of effects.
Yep.
Like
I guess the reason I thought of nylon string is you can't do it with anything else.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you know what I mean? Like nothing else kind of sounds like that, Yeah, maybe a 335 type guitar would be another one that I would say, again, because nothing really gets that humbucker in the neck kind of fat tone that they get.
And you can also make it sound Les Paulish, like a good 335
Oh, yeah.
is a great rock guitar as well.
Oh, yeah. That's what they are, really, to me. It's like, especially for blues stuff, there's no better blues guitar. One of my favorite guitar players actually is arriving here tomorrow, a guy called Chris Kane. I don't know if you've ever heard him.
No.
But he plays like a Gibson 335. Gibson actually gave him it at Herb Ellis's request back in the day. And Chris is just phenomenal, you know. But 335 straight into a Fender amp, and he turns the amp up on. He just dimes it, and then he rides the volume
controls,
and it's just, oh my god. He sings like B.B. King. Some of his early records, Robin Ford played rhythm guitar because that's how much he really liked Chris Kane.
I think I know who this is, actually.
He's phenomenal. He's just ridiculous. He's been to Australia a bunch of times, so if he ever does come and play in your area, definitely do go and check him out. But yeah, just that for me, that's like that 335 blues thing with an amp just dialed out. It's just, it's terrific.
But it seems to be, it's really interesting you bring that up, because I think of and again, it's probably like the older generation here in Perth, but the few guys I know who were doing the session thing were also obsessed with the Vi and Satch thing. You know, that was like the state of the art, and you had an Ibanez and, you know, a Boogie and stuff like that. But I always chalk it up to like Larry Carlton. You know, you had a 335 because he was the absolute tone connoisseur, you know. But also I guess it was part of that, you know, Lee Ritner's the other guy that I think of in that kind of, you know, they can, and it feels like a little bit of a lost art. And I mean, when I think of people who can still kind of do that, like, you know, there's yourself, where you can live in that jazz world without it being, it's not like just, I'm a blues player doing 3-note per string Lydian dominant licks, you know? It's, you actually take the time to immerse yourself in it. So it kind of, it's that the session thing isn't just like having a Tyler guitar on a rack.
Yeah. It's funny that, you know, when I was first getting sessions, and I was maybe about 15 or 16, and I remember working for this guy, Peter Blake, who basically wrote everything that you heard on New Zealand television
right.
At the time, you know, on TV1, which was the old folks channel, you know? And he wrote everything. I remember doing a session for him, and it was for the One News in New Zealand, and I just played a couple of big power chords because that's what he wanted under this very orchestral kind of track. It took about 5 minutes, and he said to me, the key thing to being a session guy is, he goes, it's not about reading, it's not about rhythm, you know, all those things, tone. He said, it's all about personality. He goes, that's what I want. He goes, when you come in, I want you to bring big personality to the music. He goes, because I can play it on my keyboard and have it sound very straight and sterile. I want you to bring it to go, you know, to bring a bit of mongrel to it.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've always remembered that, and I've always kind of chased after that when I do sessions, you know. I mean, I do a lot of my own gigs as well. I got a trio that I do with an organ trio, playing kind of funk groove stuff, and that's all improvised. I won't let the guys use any charts on stage, because otherwise people are doing this instead of, you know, paying attention to the audience and to what's going on. And
who's the British guy? Matt Schofield, is that who I'm thinking of? Who also has an organ trio. I remember reading about that and being like, that can't work. There's no bass.
Yeah.
You know, like, well, I mean, so how do you
a lot of bass in an organ?
Bass with the left hand.
Yeah, exactly. But that must be so interesting if you think of a classic trio where you have bass guitar, you know, the bass can play a note, and then you have a lot of freedom to do stuff. But the extra kind of harmonic complexity that an organ player can bring, do you find that, how do you like that challenge live?
It's my favorite context actually to play in, as a trio: drums, organ, and guitar. Mostly because the bass note on an organ is much fatter a lot of times than a electric bass. It has this sub thing that when it gets going, it's just terrific. There's also something about the timbre that, like, an organ almost sounds like a distorted electric guitar, just like a lightly distorted. So sometimes when I play chords, if I'm got a bit of drive going on, the blend with the organ is just fantastic. Also, too, if I play the melody line to the song, I get bass and I get chord. Mm-hmm. And then when the organ player solos, the chord drops away and they're still playing bass and they're playing solo. And there's a massive big window for me to play rhythm guitar in there. So I can play like the whole time. I don't have to sit out unless I choose to. And that's not the case in all formats. So, it's so exciting and fun. If you've got the right band, if you've got an organ player who just kind of crashes over everything, that sucks. And
well, organ's kind of it's its own instrument in and of itself that I don't know very many people that show. It's kind of like I know a couple of banjo players that play banjo because they played guitar, not because they have like studied and understand what the instrument is about. It like takes that time to develop. So same with organ, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm a great piano player. So I don't know. You got to like, not everybody's John Lord, I suppose.
It's a different instrument, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the chord voicing's a difference. That's one of the big things that I find with a lot of organ players is they play, if their piano player's playing organ, they'll play, jazz chords or whatever. They just don't work. It should be a whole lot of fifths in chords, and like it's really like guitar chords in a lot of ways.
I guess because you have the ability to blend in so many overtones, it's like, it's cool on a piano or a Rhodes to play like either like one of those kind of like, you're hearing a lot of like neo soul stuff where it's just like a mash where there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the chord with an odd bass note, or really wide voicings where the root or the fifth isn't in the bass. But as soon as you add a whole bunch of overtones to those, the low notes beat. So it's like, fifths, and then get the cool stuff on the top,
groove,
which is exactly like distorted electric guitar.
Yeah, and just grooving, it's like I do like playing. Sometimes the guy I use a lot here, he often plays like a Rhodes sound and a bass sound, and then some of it he'll play an organ, and but essentially when he's playing Rhodes and bass, he's still playing it like it's like he's playing an organ thing. We do a lot of funk groove stuff, and with that band, we never discuss what we're going to play. Like there's never ever a conversation. I start playing something, and then that becomes whatever song it is. Yep. And then sometimes we'll just go into another song, and it's so then I've got to figure out how to play that song in that key, because if we're in F minor and the original was an A minor, well, now we're in F minor. I got to figure it out, and those guys are monster musicians, so it's just great fun. Especially the drummer too. The drummer's just, the only problem is the drummer is so good that he's on like everybody's gig, and he's hardly ever available. He's got that gig with that band Shapeshifter. I don't know if you've ever heard them. They're like a drum and bass band that tour the world. So he's so good. So every time I play with him, I'm just like, it's so inspiring, and I go away from it going, damn, I just got my ass whipped.
Yeah.
It's great.
I love that. I love playing with people that are better than you. I think, I can't remember who said that. Might have been Jason Becker, which is really silly, but it's like, when you're young, particularly when you're young, play with people that are better and they make you better. Don't play with people that you have to drag along with you if you can help it. We're back.
Thank you for that interlude. We're back with the one and only Nick Granville. Nick, we've spoken about a wide variety of topics today. What do you have coming up for the rest of the year? I'm interested to know what your gigging schedule looks like, and you're talking about the trio, and like what's keeping you musically inspired, and also we'll get to it, but what gear do you have your eye on? Is there any stuff recently you really want to add to your rig?
Yeah, well, I'm actually, I'll start with the gear. I'll start in reverse. So, gear-wise, FM9's on the cards. That's one. I'm actually about to switch my whole thing over to go 100% on the digital rig. Mm-hmm. It seems like it's just the solution for me. I travel so much with gigs that, being able to take it on the plane and just put it up the top and just know that I've got a rig that goes. It's going to be huge. I mean, I'll still keep my amps here for recording, but most of the time it's just going to be that's going to be the way forward for me, and some kind of FFR type setup, because a lot of times you have to do that, or I've got in-ears as well, even though I don't like using them much. So that's the next bit of gear that I'll be getting for sure. What gigs have I got? I got something coming out with a blues harmonica player. Should be interesting, because this guy's like a shredder, but on the harmonica. Like he'll try and go me the whole gig, like he'll be like, "Come on, man," like it's really fun. And he does
I
all
haven't heard
kinds
that
of stuff.
expression for so long since I played footy. Like, he was trying to go me.
Yeah, totally. And he, Aussie and Kiwis, right? We all
Yep.
speak the same.
Yep.
Americans are probably thinking, those guys are crazy. So I've got that coming up. I've got some trio stuff. The Christmas run, there'll be a whole lot of gigs around that and different stuff. I've got a James Bond show I'm doing with, we do a whole night of James Bond's music with an orchestra.
Wow.
So I get to
that's
play the classic, which is the one and only probably main guitar part.
Okay, I have to ask you, what's your favorite Bond theme? Just as a song and then to play.
The one I'm most looking forward to, because they're doing a bunch of them, is that one.
Yep.
So the fuzz pedal is coming out for that one, which I think was Jack Black and Alicia Keys.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm looking forward to playing that riff. That's probably, was that Casino Royale or one of the more modern ones?
Yeah. It wasn't Skyfall because that was Adele. There's also the Chris Cornell one, which has
that was great
some
too.
really cool guitar stuff in, and obviously the older stuff.
Oh, totally. I'm a huge fan of all that stuff, and I really like cinematic music. I've been thinking about doing more and more incorporating of that kind of thing. Nick Johnson's someone I really dig a lot, and he has a lot of that element in his playing and in his music, and I thought that's something I need to incorporate more in what I'm doing. So.
Yeah, actually, he was at the. It's funny because your name came up. He was at the Melbourne Guitar Show when I was there, and speaking of Andrew from Independent, he mentioned you and trying to get you over for one
Next
of them
year.
in the future. So hopefully at the next one we can both be there. That would be a fun.
Man, 100%. I told Andrew, I'm coming. I don't care what happens. I want to come to the Melbourne Guitar Festival because I've been to NAMM about 10 times now. And I'm planning to go to that in January next year again because I haven't been for a couple of years with everything that's been going on. The last thing I wanted to do was be in a big conference hall with people spreading COVID. But now it's, so yeah, definitely. I'm very keen to go to the Melbourne Guitar Festival and that'd be awesome. And I saw Nick Johnson was there last year and I just love his playing. And unfortunately, he came through New Zealand as well. And they only did Auckland and Christchurch and skipped Wellington. So one North Island date, one South Island date. And both, I was actually going to fly out to Auckland to go and see him, but I had gigs both of those nights.
You got Perthed. That's exactly what happens over here. It's like Sydney,
Does it?
Melbourne, Brisbane. No, of course, no one's coming to Perth.
Oh, Coldplay's coming here, mate. No one else is getting Coldplay apart from here.
Exactly. I mean, it only took the state government to intervene so that we could get the Coldplay.
I didn't realize that's what happened, but yeah, someone told me that
crazy.
Yeah, it's
that's what
isn't
it takes.
Yeah, it's rat shit, isn't it? It's like, I mean, part of it's Wellington's fault. We don't have any venues that are really appropriate for that sort of thing. We've got a stadium here that holds about 50,000 people with no roof on it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've been to Wellington before, but it's like, it's supposed to be the windiest city in the world, second to Chicago.
Right. Mate, the roof
so-
just fly straight off. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And and also too, without a roof, all the sound goes out, and then all the people that are in the neighboring houses complain. So they're only allowed to do 6 concerts a year there.
Oh my gosh.
And of those 6 concerts, like anything, we had the Edinburgh Military Tattoo here one year, and they did 4, and that was considered 4 of the concerts. So
Hey, nothing
everyone
against the
avoids
Edinburgh
it.
military tattoo, but that's going through using all your gig coupons on that kind of feels like a bit of a loss. I imagine it's exactly the same thing in New Zealand as well, where like sport has this elevated status with the powers that be, and music and the arts really kind of get shunted. But the example I would use here would be, to be that Coldplay one where like no one comes to Perth and, the WA state government basically, sets it up so it's an exclusive thing. But if it's a test match or if it's a footy game or something like that, they're packing out the stadiums for that. Everybody gets into that. And it's really only your top tier global acts that will kind of come through. I imagine that's even worse with a smaller country.
Yeah, and especially Wellington, I mean, there's 500,000 people here, and there's maybe 2 million in Auckland. So guaranteed everybody's going to go to Auckland if they do one date here. So we miss out on a lot of stuff. And without the appropriate venue, it's sort of, it's a real shame, but it is what it is. So
Yeah.
that's what I loved about being in the UK was that when we were there and in Europe, it was, man, everything's on your doorstep. And anytime you want to go and see stuff, it's all there. Everybody plays London, right?
It'd be silly not to. I always get, if I do interviews and stuff, people are like, so what's the scene like in Perth? And you're like, what scene? It's non-existent. Like when you compare it to, these large cosmopolitan centers or even like cities in the, smaller cities in the Midwest in America, it's like, yeah, they actually have music scenes. And so I imagine with New Zealand, is it very much the case where you also just know everybody else doing the similar thing that you do?
Totally. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, Wellington's kind of unique. It actually, maybe I'm sounding a little bit of a proud Wellingtonian here, but it's it definitely punches above its weight in terms of music venues and stuff like that. But they're not your big stuff. We miss out on the big stuff. But for example, there's 6 or 7 venues in Wellington that do music at least 3 or 4 nights a week.
Oh, that's pretty.
And most of that's
impressive.
creative music, like they're into jazz or funk or blues related kind of musics. One place that I play at holds about 50 people maximum. It's really small. It's like playing in someone's little living room. It's my favorite place to play, bar none.
Yeah.
And they do.
That sounds like the Ellington here.
It is. It's similar. Yeah. They do Thursday, Friday. They do 2 gigs on a Saturday and a Sunday. And for a city this small, that's and there are a few places like that. There's about 3 or 4 that do at least that many dates, and then there's a bunch of others. It's pretty good. Like in Auckland, the biggest city in New Zealand, they while they get the major acts, they don't have anything like that. They don't have any club gigs. They have the casino.
You lose something when you scale up with those kind of things, right?
Well, it becomes very corporate too. It's a very corporate kind of place, whereas Wellington's a very cultural art kind of place. Kind of like Melbourne and Sydney, right?
Yep. Big time. That's why we've played in Melbourne so much and not so much in Sydney, where you get there and you're just like, oh my God, there's so much stuff going on. Why would anyone, if I lived here, I wouldn't come to this gig. And this is also purely out of self-interest because I want to, the time difference is so convenient with New Zealand. Who are some players in New Zealand that people listening to this should go and check out? Who are some of your favorite locals?
Oh man, yeah. Well, I mentioned that drummer before, Darren Matthiessen. Darren, we call him D, but Darren Mathiessen's his name. He's pretty much the guy on everyone's gig here, from Shapeshifter to all the pop gigs. He's playing that guy Chris Kane who's coming through. He's playing the blues guitar player. He's playing that gig.
Nice.
He's the funkiest, dirtiest mofo you've ever heard. We played with Layla Hathaway last year, and he was the drummer on that with the orchestra. He just plays everything, and he plays everything with such heart and soul. Guitar player-wise, there's a guy in Auckland who is a dear friend who's playing. I absolutely love a guy called Dixon Nacy. And Dixon's someone you should check out for sure. He's just got great time, great feel. Jazz guy, but does everything, pop gigs, all kinds of stuff. Lee Jackson's another one. There's some players around that are good, for sure. James.
Yeah.
Lee Jackson. If only.
Warren Mendoza's another guy.
Warren's badass.
Yeah, I've been really trying to tee up a time to chat to him. Hopefully the next week or two will make it happen. But and super into the 80s rack thing as well. Like we message one another every now and then. And it just started out like sending pictures. And I was like, after about a week, I was like, I should check this guy's playing out, thinking it was just going to be, like hair metal redux. And I was like, this is not what I expected, bro. Like this is
he can really play. Yeah,
super tasty.
He's like right into the Michael Landau kind of thing. Like that's his hero. It's funny when I first met Warren. I was doing this show in Auckland, and we'd known about each other for a while. And he said, I I was doing the show in Auckland, and I was staying in an apartment like miles out of town because that's where they put me up. And Warren said, "I'll come and pick you up, and I'll bring you around, and I'll make you lunch." And so I went round to his place, and he made me the most amazing curry. And then we sat and we just chewed the fat and listened to his and he went through all his gear. He's got like an unbelievable gear collection. Like he's got a Sir Bella, and he's got a custom audio OD100, and he's got a couple of plexis, and like he's got the stuff, you know. And he's cool. And so there was a gig a couple of months ago that came up, and they said, "Oh, we want to have a 2-guitar thing." So I rang Warren, and he ended up playing with my trio, with the organ trio. So it was me and Warren, and then organ and drums, and it was fantastic. And we played all that sort of Jeff Beck type stuff, you know, "'Cause You Ended As Lovers" and things like that. It was just great.
Yeah, it's kind of like there is definitely a, you know, it's like the King's X thing, right? You know, there's a club, and sometimes knowing that particular people are into the same sort of like cult records that you are, you just know you're going to get on well, and then, you know, you just know they're going to be able to do the job if needed. You know?
Yeah. We played what's that song? The Michael Landau thing from Tales from the Bulge. We played that on the gig too.
I'm buzzed. Yep. Yep.
Whatever it is, I can't remember it now, but
it's in drop D, and I love that because I know so many, you know, you see those rack Facebook groups, which I love because you learn so much great info, but there's also people who are like, you know, yeah, good music stopped in 1990. And it's like, bro, like you're raving about like the Lando tri-stereo chorus sound, and like Get Buzzed is in drop D. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
that's, I remember trying to learn that and being like, this is hard to play. It's in drop D. So yeah, the first time I heard that was Erwin Thomas, aka Jack Jones. It was a video of him doing a clinic, and he played that. And I mean, still to this day, one of the best live guitar solos I've ever heard was when he was, so he had a band called Electric Mary, and they're still going. He's not playing with them anymore. But that was his sort of like, you know, groovy hard rock thing. And they opened for Judas Priest. This would have been 2008. And I was like, oh, this band's pretty good. They kind of sound like The Cult, you know, I dig it. And then they had this one song where, you know, he just did this like 5-minute improvised guitar solo. And I was just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, you know, he was good for the rest of the gig, but it was like what he played was just, it was on this whole other level. And then I didn't know that it was, you know, it's like, oh, you know that band you like, Southern Sons? It's the same guy, just this is, you know, he's just playing guitar. So yeah, it like incredible. And then yeah, looking up everything he'd done, I was like, oh, I didn't know Michael Landau had, and that's kind of one of the tipping off points into that thing, that sophisticated jazz blues rock thing.
I've seen him twice actually. I saw him at the Blue Whale and at the Baked Potato in Los Angeles, and then I saw him at Catalina's with Steve Gadd's band, and
wow,
both times it was just like, what the heck. And actually one of the gigs he did at the Baked Potato, this harmonica player walked out of the audience and just sat in and played. and it was like mega uncomfortable. You could see Landau kind of looking around going like who the fuck is this guy? Like, what's he doing just sitting in, you know? And nobody said anything because this dude was like built like a brick shit house and he was going to beat someone up, you know? So they just let him finish his thing, and then he sat back down and nobody said anything. And it was like, wow, good to know that even at that level, that shit goes on.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You know, it's
man, he sounded so good that night though. It was he had his Hot Rod Deluxe Landau, and then he had a super reverb. Both of them were dimed out and mic'd up. Man, I get shit because people say I'm too loud.
That's not a big room for that rig.
No, and it sounded
that is a big room for that rig, I should say. Like that for that big rig for that room. That's what I meant to say. Like, yeah,
and mic'd up, 2 microphones, you know, and it was like, and it sounded glorious. But it was never like. But that's the thing, man. Every time I've been to the States and played and seen gigs and stuff, man, those guys play loud. You know, I saw Adam Rogers with Dice play one night. He had a plexi head into a 212 dimed out, and that was in a tiny little club. and it sounded glorious. It was beautiful. It was like a beautiful guitar tone. And man, I bring my little Tweed Deluxe that's over there that's like 20 watts. I have it on 3 and someone's like, oh man, you can't, what are you doing?
Yeah, bro,
Man,
too much.
You know what though? Like, pretty much that's been every gig I've done since I started doing gigs about like 15 years ago. It's like, it's always too loud. So I'm always turning it down. And I've never had satisfying guitar sounds live, particularly clean sounds. I've always been like, oh, it's just like really sterile and whatever. And then now, because I've got a cabinet over in that corner connected to my amp switcher and stuff, and I just got my Marshall back from being modded by Headfirst amps over in Melbourne. And it's like, you turn that thing up, it doesn't have to have all of the distortion on it, but just that volume and the feel of it, it just is completely different. Like, it's just like, it feels like what a guitar should sound like. And as much as I love the modelers and stuff, I don't get that same sensation when I play, because always the volume is so quiet. Like, the tone is there, the core tone is there, but the sensation is so different. It's like, that balance is really hard, you know?
I totally know what you mean. To me, it's like the modelers sound like you're playing in a recording session, you know, that your amp's in another room and you're on headphones. So for me, like the way I choose between what to use and when is like, if I'm at a gig where my amp's barely on, 100% I'm going with the modeler. Mm-hmm. If I'm at a gig where I can actually crank it a bit, then I'll use an amp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because even with modelers, you still need some kind of monitoring. It's not, you can't just turn up with your in-ears and hope for the best. Like I've had gigs where the conductor goes, oh man, how am I going to hear the guitar without it? And so then the sound guys try and wrestle up a monitor for the conductor, and it's sort of, so you really need some kind of monitoring, and then that creates complexities too. So
that's something I didn't realize with certain, certain bands I played with, because for me, if I rocked up with ears, which I do that occasionally on some gigs, that and modeler, I don't mind it, at least because I can give myself some like volume so I can sort of, at least hear it properly. But it never really occurred to me the lack of sensation of everyone else in the band and how sterile it feels and how empty it feels. And which is why we've probably talked about it, like Leon and I've talked about it over the last couple of months, but I've been going back to using amps at gigs in certain venues, because it's just like the drummer just needs it and the bass player just needs it. It's so silly. I did a gig about this time last year. It was Elena was at the Lucky Shag upstairs there. So quite a small room, but like drummer, a bass player that I think he had, it was Jono. So I think he had like a 4x10, reasonably loud. And I didn't bring an amp. All I had was a 1x10 Behringer foldback speaker. And that was it for the band. And I did it, but man, it was not the gig for that rig. I just was selfishly thinking like, oh, close enough, but
I had the same experience. I did this Carole King tour with this singer, and we did a bunch of dates around New Zealand, and so I couldn't take an amp, so I took my Fractal and I carried it in a backpack, and I took a Telecaster style guitar and my Ibanez Talman, and that was all I could bring. And one night I turned up and there was some horrible broken Mackie as my wedge, and I was just like, man, it was painful. Every note I played sucked. Like I just hated it. And then the next night we got there and they had an EV with a powered EV, and it sounded sensational out of it. Like I went away from it going, I'm super happy with that tone. I think a lot of times too, like how you get the modeler dialed in is kind of the key. Like I turn all the gates off, all the compression off. I try and get as much openness and dynamics out of it as possible. And that seems to be the big thing, Also,
just turning the gates off is huge, because then, you can properly use your volume control, and there's no more noise than a real amp would have.
No, exactly. And I think also too, sometimes with modelers, it's tempting to kind of wash everything out with a whole lot of reverb and a whole lot of gain. Mm-hmm. And I found too that just by dialing the gain back a little bit, even like I'll get it set up where I think I want the gain, and then I'll just notch it back just a touch. And then all of a sudden I get pretty much the same thing, but a bit more open and a bit more amp-like, if people want to say that.
And that's where that volume thing comes in with the real amp, because the volume makes it so easy to play. You're not it happens to me every single day. I sit down here and I start playing. I'm like, man, just a new day of reminding myself that I can't play the guitar. And it's like, I'm hearing the strings as loud as my monitors. And it's like, oh, maybe if I just turn up a little bit more, and there's this point where it hits, it's like you can't really hear the acoustic sound of the strings anymore. So that like touch to tone thing starts happening. And yeah, with a loud amp, you know, you get that sensation. The only way to kind of get it is compression or gain. So yeah, I totally feel you there. At the same time though, it's, you know, it's never been easier if you've got a drummer on ears to like give them a decent feed now. Because I remember doing gigs with an amp, and you know, you have a drummer rock up to a gig and they're like, no, I use in-ears, so I'll just take it from the desk. And you're like, it's going to be bad, bro. And they're like, I'll just take this DI out from your amp. So, you know, they're doing an entire gig with just like buzzsaw. And it's fine, I can hear the timing. It's like, yeah, but it's not the same.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, in the show at the moment, we're all we've got an app that we can connect to the mixing desk, and we have our headphones, and we've got total control over it, which makes a world of difference. The only unfortunate thing, because there's so many people, we're all in mono.
Yep.
Right. Like both me and the bass player are like, come on. Because literally he's got no amp either. He's playing bow a lot of the time, but he's also playing, when he plays electric bass, it's like, you know, you're now hearing it in mono instead of some kind of, yeah. But I think they both got uses, so I use them both. You know, I like both tools. They're both, to me, they're just tools.
What app is it? Like what console is it controlling? Just out of interest.
I have no idea.
Yeah, because it's there's one called Mixing Station, which is,
this one's called On Stage, and it's a V with a purple V.
Okay,
I've heard about On Stage before.
Yeah, it just depends on what mixer you're connected to, because I don't know. Sometimes I remember I'm a sound guy and I get interested in digital, like patching and digital consoles and stuff. And it is great that you can like, you know, performer has the ability to control their ears rig, because that makes so much sense, really, just to be able to turn stuff up and down. It's just that like some of the apps you got to pay for them, which is annoying. And like I've even thought about it in the studio to be like, oh, here's my, you just download this one app and connect it to the Wi-Fi network, and then you can do your own mix. But I don't want to be like, oh, by the way, you have to pay $20 for this app to do that. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's a dystopia.
Yeah. But the other thing that's funny is like when like mixing your own ears for studio. Like I have little personal headphone mixers that I give to people, which I like those. In that scenario, because at least if something's wrong, you stop. Like if the mix is wrong, you can stop and get it right. But I'd be really curious to see how that goes in certain environments. Like, because it's really easy to fuck up your ears mix. really easy to do it. I mean, I don't know how more easy or difficult it is when it's like one monitor person doing it for everybody, or the person doing it themselves. I guess there's like a point where it could go either way. So for someone like yourself that is experienced, like, be amazing.
You have to be literate in that kind of thing, you know, and not everybody is. Like,
you've got to have some kind of tech understanding, don't you, to kind of When did it become so complicated? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just music.
I remember hearing a thing where someone made the point, you know, back before it was easy to have, you know, this was in a studio context, you know, where everyone could do their own mix on those headphone things, that you just got the mix. So what you played was, and what you were hearing back was probably closer to what the finished product was going to be. So the dynamism you needed to play with was probably, they were arguing that it's like, you had to play more dynamically in that setting. So, and you had to set your sound up a little more to let you do that, because, you know, if the guitar needs to be louder, well, you have to just kind of turn up a bit in that section and turn down. And it's, I mean, I know and it's genre dependent. There's no right or wrong with this, but, you know, there's, you know, you see like tech metal bands where they go out and do their show, and the feed that each member gets is the record minus their part.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah,
I didn't know that's what they did.
The Dean Lamb, who you know, him and his wife do like 4 levels of death metal. Like, I love his channel, amazing player. But yeah, he was saying, he's like, you know, our stuff is so complex that we just found it's easier to go out and perform. And I mean, I can respect that, but at the same time, it's like, your experience as a musician is going to be so fundamentally different to what the audience experiences.
Yeah.
They're I don't know, maybe it just works. Maybe I'm wrong, but like the sort of music I play anyway is sort of like, you need that feedback with the audience and with the other members where what's happening live is what you're vibing off.
Yeah, that's why I struggle with in-ears and in-ear gigs, because you don't get that feedback from the audience in the same kind of way, or even your band members around you. You're not hearing them as you hear them. You're hearing them like right in your ear in a way that's not. There's no kind of stereo separation, or say the drums get a little loud, you can kind of step away from a minute and then you might step in towards your monitor. All of that's gone. It's consistent. So I use in-ears when I have to, but I prefer not to, but they're what they are, And again, it comes down to good sound engineers. If you have a good that's why I'm bitching and moaning about the sound engineers. Because if you have good sound engineers, it's just easy.
Yeah.
And then when you don't, I did Les Mis last year, which is a show I hadn't done before, and that was pretty epic. And about 5 shows in, I started getting distorted nylon string guitar on one of the songs, and I was like, and it was just me and vocal, and I'm playing this shit, and I'm like it was unplayable. And the MD's looking at me, and I'm like, it's not me. So when I saw the sound guy, and he said, "Oh, it's your battery and your guitar," and I said, "For one song, like wouldn't it be there the whole night?" The next night, the exact same song, exact same thing happened. So when I saw him again, he pulled up the multi-tracks, because they're multi-tracking the whole show every night. And sure enough, you could see it ramp up, distort, and then ramp back down. So I was like, "Man, you've got some kind of automation in there." He goes, No, it's your pedal. Your tuner pedal's doing it. Okay, next night, same thing. So when I saw him, I'm like, "Dude, you're killing me. You got to fix this. It's brutal." And he goes, "Okay." "Okay, I'll have a look." Miraculously, it was fixed that night. So we got there, but it was but you're at their mercy now. There's not like, it's a different thing. And I think that's the thing with in-ears, you're at the sound guy's mercy. And if you have an amazing sound person, then it's great, and make them the next member of the band and just take them around everywhere and don't let anyone else have them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But who can afford that these days?
I know, right?
I don't know
Steve
if you want to
Vai.
do that. The most miserable people in the world. And I am one, so I understand. I can say that.
Oh, man. Well, maybe on that note of absolutely chewing out sound guys, and sending love to all the sound guys listening in on here. Nick, where can people find you on the internet? Are you still teaching? Do you still do private lessons and things like that? Because I'm sure there's people on here who might want to hit you up as well. So where can people find you on the web?
I don't really do private lessons regularly, but I do like one-off masterclasses and workshops and stuff like that. So if people want that, I can do that. But I end up having to let people down with regular lessons, because like with these shows, for example, there's 7 shows a week. There's no time to teach, so it's sort of. But if it's one-off stuff, I do that. I do some stuff for Premier Guitar. I'm about to do some articles for them, but generally just my website or social media, or I do some stuff for YouTube. Although I'm not prolific like you are, I'm a slacker and I just get to it when I get time.
No, that's called having a life, Nick. You've demonstrated that, you play guitar, that's your life. When you don't do these things, you make a lot of YouTube videos like me. So,
oh man, you're so good at it though, and I'm quite envious. I have to say that you're very strict with how you put them out, and they're always well produced. And so I do that a little bit, but mostly social media is probably the easiest way. Just
great.
Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Just hit me up, and man, it's been awesome to chat with you guys.
Yeah, likewise, mate. It's
for coming
big
on.
fan of the podcast and all your work that you do. It's awesome.
I'm inspired to practice now, which is, that I have no higher praise after speaking to anybody where I want to actually pick up a guitar and make some music.
Oh man. Well, hopefully you do stuff that sounds way better than me, because I know you will.
No. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Nick Granville, thank you for joining us. We will see you all next week on the Gear Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
See you later.